permanent disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Kathy, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the July 12th issue of the New York Times Business section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The work of helping AI destroy work. Startups are paying white-collar professionals to teach their jobs to artificial intelligence models. It's a bonanza. It's bleak. Where will it end? By Laura Kelly. AI is turning rarefied skills into gig work. New training data sellers rely on paid professionals to provide clients with an elite level of know-how, a market that's exploding. Every day, Mercor, a startup that sells training data to artificial intelligence companies, pays 30,000 contractors more than $4 million to help make their jobs and those of their colleagues obsolete. It's gig work, but for professionals with rarefied skills. One recent Mercor posting offered $225 an hour for a voice actor able to maintain a customer service persona in fluent Hebrew. Another sought a PhD physicist with a specialization in general relativity, astrophysics, or cosmology. A third listing wanted a physician with more than 3 years of experience in the Rwandan primary care medical system. Mercor and a handful of similar startups are the primary middlemen in a supply chain of human data that may power the next generation of AI. As OpenAI, Anthropic, and other major ventures compete to become the industry's dominant platform, the market for premium data that has been vetted by experts is exploding. No longer do the AI companies need armies of low-paid workers, often overseas, to do rote tasks like tag images of cars or transcribe audio. They need mathematicians to annotate proofs, lawyers to mark up briefs, and professors to grade essays. That's what Mercor and its rivals supply. To use the industry's parlance, data labeling has moved up the value chain, and the startups that offer this service have become some of the fastest growing in Silicon Valley. Mercor, which was founded in 2023, announced a funding round in October at a $10 billion valuation. On Thursday, Bloomberg reported that the company is now talking to investors about a deal at twice that level. Last year, Meta invested more than $14 billion in another data training venture, Scale AI, in part to hire its chief executive. Handshake, a recruiting startup that pivoted to data training only in 2025, says its annualized revenue rate crossed $1 billion in April, up from $550 million at the start of the year. These data training startups are exploiting a market opportunity, selling to well-capitalized labs a product for which there is now near unlimited demand. But it's a delicate moment. The training startups need ChatGPT, Claude, and other AI models released by their clients to keep improving, to demonstrate that they are adding value. They also need the models to remain imperfect so that those clients keep coming back for more data. It may turn out that once OpenAI, Anthropic, and others have taught their models to perform a certain job, their need for more training data in that area could sharply decline. In this way, Mercor, Scale, Handshake, and their peers are much like the elite freelancers they employ, making money today, but in danger of being dropped tomorrow. The startups would love to diversify their business so that they are less reliant on just a few major clients. For now, one way they are seeking to maintain momentum is by pressing into a tricky new area. Rather than just capturing the work of individuals, the Hebrew-speaking voice actor, the Rwandan physician, they're trying to capture the output of entire companies. Brendan Foody, the 23-year-old chief executive of Mercor, told me that this was the bottleneck to the Frontier Lab automating everything that people do. On Thursday, he announced the acquisition of DeepTune, a startup that makes training environments with simulations of the software programs like Slack and Salesforce that many workers toggle between all day long to get their work done. The idea is to painstakingly create a mirror image of, say, an investment bank so that AI can observe every interaction. One person will role-play the customer, the others will role-play the investment bankers, and they'll build this out corresponding to the exact distribution as closely as possible, Mr. Foodie said. In theory, AI can then answer a profound question, like, what do they do at Goldman Sachs? What happens next to the workers at Goldman's goes without saying. Not a glamorous option. Why would people participate in feeding their own careers into the AI wood chipper? People sign up for data training gigs for a variety of reasons. The main one is, of course, money. This work is not glamorous, but it is in demand, which is more than can be said about many jobs, especially ones in crumbling fields like academia. Though the labor is unpredictable and rates vary, sometimes people are paid only if a supervisor approves the output. The workers who cobble together enough shifts can generate meaningful income. People might sign up because they have been laid off or because they can't find enough work in their field. They might do it because they're eager to get AI on their resume, or because they need extra cash in retirement, or because they genuinely believe in the potential of AI and want to be part of making the models improve. Many people who contract for these companies understand that this is a short-term opportunity, a brief chance to train the models to automate jobs before they themselves are automated out of the job of training models. For Amanda Brown, an assistant professor of biology at Tarleton State University in Texas, part-time gigs on platforms such as Mercor and Handshake seemed at first like a straightforward way to make extra cash last summer while she wasn't teaching. Some tasks offered $60 an hour, which sounded appealing, and she was interested in learning more about the models, especially since her students use AI all the time. The experience went downhill pretty fast, Dr. Brown said. She started getting pulled into mandatory virtual meetings and working until 2 a.m. to meet deadlines. She became frustrated with gigs that paid a flat rate, but took far longer than anticipated. Her Handshake manager told her vaguely that her work wasn't good enough, which she found soul-destroying. She did the gigs on and off until December. It seems like easy money, she said. It really isn't. Part of the challenge, Dr. Brown said, was that over only a few months, she noticed rapid improvements that made it trickier to find things the AI models didn't already know, which made her shifts that much more difficult. This summer, she found a teaching gig. I wanted to see what the data training startups looked like, and Mercor invited me to its San Francisco office for a tour and an in-person interview with Mr. Foodie. Then, New York Magazine published a report headlined, "The Laid-Off Scientists and Lawyers Training AI to Steal Their Careers," which painted a harrowing picture of the unstable, inconsistent, emotionally draining labor offered by Mercor. "I have never, ever been treated as badly as this," one contractor told the magazine. Mercor canceled my visit. The company later made Mr. Foodie available for a short Zoom interview. A common complaint in the Discord channels and Reddit threads where contractors gather is that AI training work has dried up in recent months. That, in other words, once a set of experts teaches the models how to do something, their services are no longer needed in the same way. Some of the gig workers I spoke with told me that, in the past year, the work had gotten significantly more intricate. Summer Wall, a lawyer who is contracted with Mercor, said she sometimes napped on her couch during 72-hour grinds to meet deadlines on the most intense projects. Dissatisfied contractors, many of them sophisticated corporate operators, have brought legal action claiming that Handshake, Scal, Surge AI, and other data training startups are misclassifying, underpaying, or otherwise exploiting them. After a data breach this spring, MirCor faced at least 7 lawsuits from contractors who said their personal information had been exposed. Most of the cases are ongoing. As contentious and even toxic as the work may be, many more people may soon be pushed into these freelance gigs if even some of the predictions about AI job loss come true. Confidence in the labor market has already collapsed, including among highly educated people. Just 1/5 of college-educated workers said now was a good time to find a quality job, according to recent Gallup polling. Willing or not, specialized workers who entered their careers expecting top compensation and prestige may find themselves among the contractor masses. MirCor seeks people with strong academic credentials, MAs, JDs, MDs, PhDs, etc., from top universities. Handshake, perhaps sensitive to the egos of academics, calls its AI labeling opportunities a fellowship and seeks, per one listing, exceptional master's and doctoral students, candidates, and graduates. Elon Musk's xAI, which dabbles in in-house training, has solicited writers who have sold 50,000 copies of a novel or published 10 short stories in elite magazines for a gig starting at $40 an hour. A recent listing from Surge called for people with a top-tier consulting pedigree to capture partner-level reasoning. The sum of human knowledge. If you want to navigate and not get replaced, you will need to embrace these skills and this knowledge to accentuate your job, said Jonathan Stahl, the chief operating officer of Handshake. He was sitting at a large wooden table in a conference room at his company's headquarters in San Francisco this spring, arguing that most white-collar jobs will soon involve giving feedback to AI models. Taken to its logical conclusion, this is a vision of work in which even high-level employees systematically automate nearly every task they perform until all that is left for them to do is train AI. Handshake is hoping to make billions of dollars hastening that future. In the conference room, Mr. Stahl and the company's head of research, Paco Guzman, explained how information is transferred from the minds of professionals into the models. Handshake does not disclose which AI labs it counts as clients, but in recent months it has publicized collaborations with Google and OpenAI. Broadly speaking, models develop in 2 ways: through pre-training and post-training. The former is what many people think of when they picture how AI learns, by sucking up the corpus of text and information of the internet. But even a full scrape of the web will not garner the sum of human knowledge. Quality information has become harder for AI to reach as various companies have restricted access to their content. The New York Times has sued OpenAI and Microsoft, claiming copyright infringement. The companies deny the claims. To keep improving their models, to make them more useful, more sophisticated, less prone to hallucination and mistakes, AI companies heavily refine what goes into them. That's post-training, and it includes buying data from vendors like Handshake and its competitors. At Handshake, those hired as a fellow might spend a shift putting together detailed samples of and solutions to problems that they might encounter in their area of expertise, or flag which of 2 responses to a given prompt is better. When a prompt doesn't have an objectively correct answer, say when the piece of work on screen is not a math problem but an essay, evaluators can score responses according to a rubric. Does the essay have a clear structure? If so, it can be awarded a certain number of points. Does the essay use proper grammar? That could increase its score too. Before submitting training data to a client, Mr. Guzman said, Handshake performs some quality control, checking data and using automated tools to assess whether the contractors might have plagiarized or used AI to complete their work. Yes, trainers using AI to improve AI is forbidden. Handshake then sends its clients a database with hundreds of thousands of values containing the original prompt, the top answer, and various metadata. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the New York Times Business section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Sometimes clients approach Handshake with something they need, and it's up to Handshake's operations and research team to figure out how to deliver it. How do you structure this? Mr. Stahl said. How do you find the right people? How do we get them in? We have to pay them, we have to vet them, we have to trust them. And sometimes Handshake approaches clients and persuades them that they need something by showing where their available models are falling short, for example. During my visit, Handshake was working on what it called a banker benchmark, effectively a standardized test to gauge whether an AI model could perform the tasks expected of a human working in finance. Mr. Guzman projected a long, detailed document on a big screen. The benchmark included a role-playing scenario addressed to an AI model. "You're a junior investment banker," the prompt section began, laying out a situation in which a managing director is asking an underling for a client report. The next section showed an ideal output, and another section listed some 90 weighted criteria for evaluating whether the model solved the problems properly. "We are verifying not just their answer, but that, along the way, they actually made the right decisions," Mr. Guzman said. "The model needs to show its work, not just spit out the solution. Human contractors," he noted, "spent many hours meticulously putting together the content of the benchmark. In theory, an AI model that gets a high score is ready to take over a banker's job." An obviation of the human. The data training startups see a lucrative opportunity in recreating workplaces in miniature, controlled environments in which their gig workers can evaluate and reproduce emails, memos, and slide presentations in context. The information emerging from such a setup, the companies boast, will help shrink the gap between what AI models can accomplish and what office workers actually do from 1 minute to the next, as ideas and instructions flow between meetings, documents, and applications. Scale, for example, has said that our environments replicate real-world workflows, and that its contractors curate artifacts that capture the complexity, ambiguity, and edge cases of real professional work. Executives see the model's shortcomings as a sign there's more for them to do. "I often use Claude Cowork, right?" said Edwin Chen, the founder of Surge. "And even though Claude Cowork is incredibly smart, oftentimes it doesn't quite understand the nuance of Slack. It doesn't quite understand this ambiguous question I have. It doesn't quite understand where to go and find this Google document." According to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, Mr. Chen's stake in Surge and his vision for what it could become makes him the 258th richest person in the world. "I often think about us as essentially like the school for AGI," Mr. Chen said, referring to the prophesied level of AI that surpasses human intelligence. "AI comes to us, and AI learns to run the world." He and his customers at the big AI labs, he said, are designing the curriculum. Mr. Chen, who styles himself as something of a thinker in an industry of merchants, mused about whether education will still be a thing in the future or whether people will just watch AI slap videos on their phones for entertainment. But he argues that his company is creating paying work as well as helping to one day spawn AI collaborators that will not replace jobs but rather assist knowledge workers in getting more done. Intellectuals, he predicts, will eventually embrace the mental challenge of training and improving AI and consider it a novel career path that is one of the most prestigious and impactful in society. Executives with a vested interest insist that demand for training will continue indefinitely, but others are not so sure. As AI systems get better, there is going to be less of a need for human teachers for the AI, said Anton Koronek, an economist at the University of Virginia, who just began a year-long leave of absence to work at Anthropic. Both the importance of that kind of post-training data overall and the growth of companies specializing in that may decline somewhat. As for the prediction that most white-collar employees will do some form of data training, Dr. Koronek said he thought it was too general. It kind of sounds like saying, in the future, all white-collar workers will be professors, he said. Why would that be true? The concept of artificial intelligence implies an obviation of the human. Even its name suggests the idea that the machine does its thing, no human necessary. But at least so far, a fleet of humans is playing an intensive hands-on role in developing that intelligence. The machine is hiding the things that humans are doing, said Margaret O'Mara, a historian of Silicon Valley at the University of Washington. She's careful not to overestimate either human or machine intelligence. Not only might the models run out of data to train on, but humans might run out of ideas to give them. This big knowledge transfer of human to machine is happening at a moment where there is a diminishment of human expertise because of AI, she added. The industry could simply lose momentum before it remakes society. It's worth not just taking this as a foregone assumption that this is the way it's going to play out, Dr. O'Mara said, because that's how these companies are telling us it's going. Still seeking justice after eBay terrorized them. A documentary examines a plot to cyberstalk critics and journalists by David Streitfeld. Like so much of the internet, eBay began at a moment of intense optimism that technology could bring people together. The auction website proclaims that eBay was founded in 1995 on the simple premise that people are basically good. But what if people are not actually good? What if technology instead amplifies their worst impulses and makes them into people that are very bad indeed? In 2019, eBay executives decided that a new site and message board for eBay sellers was trouble. The site, E-commerce Bytes, would point out inconvenient facts, like that the chief executive earned 152 times the salary of the average worker. There are many ways to shut people up. You can buy them off or just buy them. Convince them of the error of their ways. Unleash the lawyers. Pretty much immediately, employees at eBay settled on a solution to the problem of Ina and David Steiner, the suburban Massachusetts couple running E-commerce Bytes. How about we terrorize them? You may remember the case. Top eBay personnel, including the chief executive, told subordinates they wanted the Steiners dealt with. James Bao, the company's head of security, led a group of mostly young female employees that attacked the Steiners so thoroughly that the couple say they have never really recovered. Mr. Bao's team sent them offensive and suggestive items, hounded them on social media, and stalked them at home. Death was the dominant message. eBay's people sent the Steiners a funeral wreath, a copy of Grief Diaries, Surviving the Loss of a Spouse, a bloody pig mask worn by the killers in the Saw horror movies. To be threatened is bad enough. To be threatened anonymously is much worse. The Steiners had no clue who hated them this much. They piled up baking pans on a laundry cart at the back door so an intruder would make a noise. They slept in separate beds so one would survive an attack long enough to call the police. As the stalking moved from virtual to their doorstep, the Steiners managed to write down the license plate of a car that eBay employees were using to survey them. They were stunned when their enemy turned out to be the company they had devoted their lives to writing about. It was corporate terrorism, a concept so new it didn't even have a name. In 2020, federal prosecutors in Massachusetts indicted 6 former eBay employees, including Mr. Bao, on charges of cyberstalking. A 7th employee was charged later. The public was aghast. 2 things seemed inevitable. First, that this would become a dramatic movie, and second, that eBay was going to pay the Steiners a bundle for trying to destroy their lives. 6 years later, only the film has happened. Whatever it takes, inside the eBay scandal, a 90-minute documentary directed by Jenny Karchman shows how a mom-and-pop business 3,000 miles from eBay's San Jose, California headquarters provoked such hostility. The film, which debuted at a film festival in 2024 but became widely available only last month, takes its title from an eBay executive's text message to the security team about silencing the Steiners. Whatever it takes does not pontificate. It moves with the speed of a thriller, but some larger implications are obvious. The episode was an early example of increasing pressure against the news media by those with power and money. Another conclusion? A story that initially seemed so outrageous as to be an aberration now feels like an early glimpse of a world where cause and effect are severed. The Steiners did nothing extraordinary, but were hammered anyway. "You are seeing a company that lost its mind," David Steiner told me. That sounds like 2026, too. Low-level guys take the fall. When Miss Karchman, a director and producer of documentaries on subjects that include Ed Koch, the New York Times, and the Grateful Dead, first read about the eBay case, she thought, "This story has everything." It had hubris. This company thought it was entitled to take down these reporters, she said. It showed how Wall Street operates. Investors are hungry for a return, but not in the long-term health of the company. It had inexperienced women being led by an older man who was preying on some of them. And in the end, it was like a mob story. The low-level guys take the fall, but not the bosses. The Steiners were introduced to Ms. Karchman through the lawyer who represented them in a civil suit they filed against eBay in July 2021. They accused the company and its employees of a systematic campaign to emotionally and psychologically torture. The couple's trust in strangers had been greatly diminished by the stalking, and they spent over a year vetting the director before agreeing to participate. They had no editorial control. Whatever It Takes was finished and shown at festivals where it garnered a good reception, but it still did not have a satisfying ending. Meanwhile, Ina Steiner, David Steiner, and Steiner Associates versus eBay Incorporated and others slowly unspooled in Massachusetts civil court. The Steiners are looking for justice, which is to say answers about who gave the orders. These have proved elusive. It is yet another element of the case that has become more familiar in 2026, the slipperiness of justice. If you believe you can fight a fair fight against a corporation or people of extreme wealth, you had better be prepared to spend the rest of your life fighting, Ina Steiner wrote in E-Commerce Bites last November, after yet another trial delay. From eBay's point of view, the stalking was deeply regrettable, but not really its fault. The company blamed its security team for going rogue. That means, it said, that the executives as well as the company itself were not responsible, despite the team acting in the name of eBay and as eBay employees. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the New York Times business section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Prosecutors basically endorsed this view. They did not charge any executives, and the penalty eventually levied against eBay, $3 million, was trivial for a company worth $20 billion at the time. One reason eBay avoided a steeper penalty was that it said it was ready to address restitution with the Steiners. In their suit, the Steiners argue that several executives, including the chief executive Devin Wenig, either knew about the stalking or were willfully ignorant. Though the perpetrators tried to wipe their phones, several revealing messages survived. Mr. Bao, the security chief, reported to Wendy Jones, the senior vice president for global operations. On May 23, 2019, according to the suit, Ms. Jones asked Mr. Bao if he could deal with the Steiners off the radar. She added, "Just get it done. I don't want to know the details." 2 months later, Mr. Wenig wrote to the communications chief, Steve Weimer, about Ina Steiner. "If we are ever going to take her down," he said, "now is the time." Mr. Weimer later texted Mr. Bao that Ina Steiner is a biased troll who needs to get burned down. This might sound incriminating to a layperson, especially since the harassment operation started shortly after. But Andrew Lelling, the U.S. attorney who handled the criminal case, said it hadn't amounted to much. In my experience, executives at companies say things like this all the time, Mr. Lelling told the filmmakers. I think what you're seeing is loose talk by the executives at the company, but linkage is missing. Jim Bow decided the right way to handle the situation is commit a federal crime. Is that something the senior executives could have reasonably expected? You bet it was, David Steiner said. Dismissing this as bro talk? That enrages me, he added. Lawyers for Mr. Wenig and Ms. Jones declined to comment, as did Mr. Bow, who was sentenced to 57 months in prison but is now free. A lawyer for Mr. Weimer did not respond to messages. Mr. Wenig left eBay with a severance package in excess of $55 million. Ms. Jones retired with a $16 million deal, according to the suit. eBay, which earlier called the stalking reprehensible, did not respond to messages. The Steiner suit proved unusually contentious. At one point, 5 exhibits were marked as uncontested, while 2,325 exhibits were contested. It was also unwieldy. There were so many lawyers, more than 60, that the judge said they wouldn't all fit in her courtroom for jury selection. Just as the trial was about to begin in March, there was a breakthrough. The Steiners told the court they had reached a deal with eBay and the executives. A trial would not be necessary. But as winter became spring, became summer, no settlement was announced. We are all at risk. If you're interested in collectibles, and millions of Americans are, eBay is inescapable. The stalking episode did not seem to faze customers. There were no mass defections to other auction sites, perhaps because there are no other sites with eBay's scale. Gary Somers is a longtime collectibles dealer who was interviewed in Whatever It Takes. He stopped selling on eBay long ago. I don't need the aggravation, he told me. He suggested the public was hardened to horrors. Every day there are shocking things, and then the next day there are 3 more. Still, to read through the voluminous pile of legal documents, the ones at least that were not sealed, is to be shocked all over again. So much is bizarre and so little is explained. If the Steiners case ever gets to trial, many questions might be answered. The young women who were handpicked for Mr. Bow's security group said it had been, in essence, a cult. They were psychologically isolated and kept separate from other company employees. They couldn't be out of touch with the office even for routine hygiene. We'd text each other like, "Hey, I'm going to take a shower. Can somebody else make sure that they answer for the next 15 minutes?" One of the women, Stephanie Stockwell, said in a deposition, "You always had to be responsive." They also had to be alone. The women were discouraged from having boyfriends or partners who could provide emotional support. "I couldn't handle anything besides this job," Ms. Stockwell said. It's surprising, given the truths that later emerged about the way women were treated across the tech industry, that the Steiners never became a cause among women's rights groups. "We were very much alone," Ina Steiner said. Nor did media organizations rally to their side. E-commerce bites might not have resembled a traditional news operation, but it was Ina's stories that irked eBay executives. The auction company at the time was trying to fend off a hostile investor that would revamp management. At its core, this is a story about First Amendment rights, David Steiner said. That's especially meaningful now when the press has been under fire and is, in a way, losing the war. In a 2022 sentencing hearing for a member of eBay's security team, U.S. District Judge William G. Young took special note of this aspect. The charge might have been cyberstalking, he said, but the case was really about corporate agents trying to suppress by fear and terror speech on important public matters. That's incredibly reprehensible. He added that we are all at risk from such behavior. For all its contemporary relevance, Whatever It Takes is being made available in a difficult environment for works that scrutinize powerful figures. Fremantle, a British production company that is part of RTL Group, which is in turn part of the Bertelsmann conglomerate, financed the film and distributes it. Shortly after the documentary became available to stream in June, Amazon MGM Studios decided it wouldn't release Artificial, Luca Guadagnino's film about the OpenAI chief Sam Altman. Amazon has a $50 billion deal with OpenAI and did not provide an explanation. People are more risk-averse, Ms. Karchman said, but the hard stories are the best stories. Love us or else. The tech companies, with their devices and social media, and now artificial intelligence, have wormed their way into the heart of our lives. They've become utilities, which is to say, essential. Must we love them too? That sometimes seems the ultimate demand. To the extent that people at eBay had an official stalking plan, prosecutors described it as such. Torment the Steiners anonymously and then publicly help them deal with the problem that the company had secretly caused. Employees called it the White Knight strategy. They thought the Steiners would end up loving eBay and stop writing critical stories. The Steiners, both in their 60s, say in court papers that they have suffered habitual insomnia, panic attacks, and a perpetual fear that they are being followed and tracked, among other problems. E-commerce bites began in 1999, only a few years after eBay itself did. In those early days, the Steiners were prized by management. Then, when eBay became a large corporation, they were ignored, even shunned. Their moment of usefulness was over. Are people basically good? Ina Steiner asked. People act in their own self-interest. They do what is going to help them. E-commerce bites has fewer readers and thus fewer ads than it did before the stalking, and that has cut their income. The suit, which accuses eBay of defamation, negligent supervision of its employees, stalking, infliction of emotional distress, and other actions, asks for nearly $500 million in compensatory and punitive damages. How naive I was, not just about what happened to us, but about the legal process, the judicial process, David Steiner said. People will eat their steak, but they don't visit the slaughterhouse. We've been to the slaughterhouse. When the settlement talks fell apart, the Steiners filed a motion to reopen their case. A settlement might be announced at any moment, but for now, it's back to the slaughterhouse. The trial is scheduled for January 4th. Children turn out to be the new investor class. With kid-friendly apps and Trump accounts, now is the time to save for the long term. By Charlotte Cowles. On a recent June morning, Savannah McConaughey, age 7, joined 3 other children at Kellogg's Diner in Brooklyn to discuss their investment portfolios. I'm saving for new clothes, new toys, shoes, and maybe, she paused to think, a mansion. Next to her, 12-year-old Naima McElroy lamented the financial habits of her peers. A lot of her classmates have trouble saving, she said, because they spend all their money on Robux, the currency used in the online game Roblox, Neatos, squishy toys, and Squishmallows, other squishy toys. It's harder to make good money decisions because of the internet, she said with a sigh. Savannah agreed, saying, like you can spend your money on stuff that you want, but don't spend all your money on stuff that you want. Over breakfast, the young investors had gathered at the behest of Acorns Early, a child-friendly spin-off from Acorns, a savings and investment app. Known primarily for enabling users to invest their spare change, Acorns will automatically round up transactions to the nearest dollar and invest the difference. The company joins the many investing platforms like Robinhood, Schwab, Vanguard, and Fidelity that are rushing to cater to a growing group of new customers, children. Acorns has even recruited its own Kid Advisory Board, which includes Savannah and Naima, to review the app's features. Opening an investment account for a child used to be something only wealthy parents did, often with the help of a financial advisor. But over the past decade or so, the rise of retail investing has given pretty much anyone the ability to invest small amounts via easy-to-use apps and websites. Investing has never been more accessible than it is right now, said Mallory Baska, 35, a mother of 2 young children who offers financial education services through her company Money Talk Mel. Along with that, there is a massive increase in awareness and interest in investing for your kids. The splashy arrival of Trump accounts, a new type of tax-deferred investment account for minors, has added to this momentum. Also known as 430A accounts, named for the section of tax code that provides for them, Trump accounts function similarly to a traditional individual retirement account, except that anyone can contribute to the account on behalf of the child. The accounts, created under the domestic policy bill last summer, opened to the public last week. To encourage participation, the government will give millions of babies born during the Trump administration a $1,000 seed contribution. The website for Trump accounts claims that if a newborn's account receives the initial $1,000 and no further contributions, it could be worth $243,000 by the time its recipient turns 55. But that calculation relies on strong, consistent market returns that are impossible to predict. Philanthropists and corporations have also vowed to sweeten the pot for Trump accounts. The hedge fund manager Ray Dalio pledged $75 million to pad Trump accounts for certain children in Connecticut, and Michael Dell, the chief executive of Dell Technologies, gifted $6.25 billion to children under 11 who live in lower-income zip codes. A growing list of companies, including Goldman Sachs, Comcast, Intel, Morgan Stanley, and others, have promised to match the government's deposit of $1,000 for children of their employees. There are strings attached, of course. All Trump accounts must be invested in low-cost mutual funds or exchange-traded funds that track broad U.S. equity indexes, such as the S&P 500, and there's a $5,000 annual cap on contributions. Recipients will need to activate their accounts through Robinhood, an e-trading platform that is partnered with the U.S. Treasury and Bank of New York Mellon to kick off the program, although they will be permitted to move their accounts to another qualified brokerage. And, as is the case with a traditional IRA, beneficiaries cannot withdraw money before the age of 59 and a half without a considerable tax penalty, although there are some qualified exceptions, like educational expenses. So even when a child turns 18 and gains access to their funds, they won't be able to touch the money without serious tax consequences. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the New York Times Business section on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. A head start on one path. No parent wants to turn down free money for their children, but there are other ways to invest for them too, and Trump accounts may not be your best option, Ms. Baska said. She is opening a Trump account for her younger son, who was born in 2025 and qualifies for the $1,000 deposit. She doesn't plan to contribute to it further right now, though, and she's not opening one for her older son, who is 3 and ineligible for the seed funding. Instead, she's going to focus on their 529 plans, which provide tax-advantaged savings for education. The reason I'm prioritizing my kids' 529s is that the most expensive thing that many children have to contend with as young adults is a college degree, she said. Her parents invested in her 529 account when she was young, enabling her to graduate from college without any student loans. I am extremely passionate about paying for my own children's education because I saw how impactful it was to start my career at 22 with a blank slate. A 529 plan has its own limitations, namely that it can be used only for school-related expenses, but Ms. Baska said the plans were less restrictive than many people thought. If your child doesn't go to college, they can use the funds for professional training, she said, or you can roll the funds to one of their siblings. Ms. Baska also recommends that parents make sure they're not jeopardizing their financial security. It's critical that you invest for your own retirement first, she said. If you invest for your child, but then have to take care of you, but then they have to take care of you financially in retirement, all that money just becomes a wash. One other tip. She plans to roll over her son's Trump account into a Roth IRA when he turns 18, instead of leaving it as a traditional IRA. The money will be taxed as income when that happens, but at age 18, he'll probably be at the lowest tax bracket of his life, she said. Then it won't be taxed when he takes it out later. Roth IRAs also have more flexible withdrawal rules than traditional IRAs, she said. A major strength of Trump accounts is that they motivate parents to start investing for their children from birth. The administration announced last week that parents would even be able to enroll their newborns at the hospital. It's becoming part of the to-do list when parents have a new baby in a way that it wasn't before, said Natalie Gordon, the chief executive at BabyList, an online baby registry that recently expanded to help expecting parents set up 529 or 530A accounts and solicit contributions. BabyList calls them 530A accounts to depoliticize the conversation, Ms. Gordon said. Investing for your child used to be one of those chores where I felt like, if I do it in a year instead of today, is it really that big a difference? She added, we know that the answer is actually yes. The nature of compound growth means that earlier is better. Another, more versatile option to invest for your child is a custodial brokerage account, which has no specific tax advantages, but offers looser restrictions on how much money can be invested and when the child can take it out. That's the type of account offered by Acorns Early, which includes educational features to encourage children to get involved. Parents can allow their children to invest their allowances or money earned from doing chores or odd jobs. We want kids to see that $3 a day, if you stick with it, can make a world of difference over a long period of time, said Noah Kerner, the chief executive of Acorns. The learn by doing model is also geared toward preventing children from blowing their accounts when they gain access to them. We're focused on encouraging continuity so that when you make that transition from 17 to 18, you want to continue the arc of compounding, Mr. Kerner said. Since Acorns Early started in 2020, more than 1.2 million parents have set up accounts. The average contribution is $89 a month. Most parents of young children are millennials, a generation that has notoriously faced a lot of economic headwinds, but has also experienced a buoyant stock market. It's reasonable, then, for these parents to believe that opening an investment account for their baby is one of the more responsible financial decisions they can make. A benefit with downsides. It won't help all children equally, though, says Ismael Cid Martinez with the Economic Policy Institute. It's a good idea for families that are already positioned to save, he said, but I'm deeply concerned about families who can't afford to save, which represents the bulk of U.S. adults. Those families won't be able to contribute to their children's investment accounts, he said, and even if their babies are eligible for the Trump account seed funding, that won't provide enough of a cushion to make a meaningful difference. The result, he fears, will widen economic disparities. If the government really wanted to do something to help families in need, Mr. Cid Martinez said, it could bring back some of the programs that were introduced in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, like the expansion of SNAP benefits and the child tax credit, which cut child poverty in the U.S. nearly by half. Child poverty rebounded quickly after the programs expired. SNAP benefits have since been slashed further by the law that established Trump accounts. Teresa Ghilarducci, a labor economist and professor at the New School for Social Research, agreed that many families need more immediate support. Helping parents invest for their children may build wealth, but it doesn't address the fact that many parents don't have the income to provide for their children today, she said. It's like saying, you can eat a sandwich in the future, but not right now. Still, it's a free sandwich. On Monday, President Trump celebrated the start of the accounts bearing his name by ringing the opening bell for the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ in the Oval Office, flanked by children. More than 6 million children have been signed up for the accounts, a Treasury Department spokeswoman said, but that's less than 10% of those who are eligible. By comparison, about 18% of minors have a 529 account. It remains to be seen how much the new accounts will help Americans save, but they have piqued public interest in doing so. Real estate. Where to exercise the option of living abroad. Residency by investment programs still offer attractive visa plans for Americans, by Lana Bortolot. Americans' interest in a life abroad is surging. A Gallup poll conducted in 2025 found that 1 in 5 Americans would move permanently to another country if possible, a 54% increase since 2020, said Julie Ray, an analyst with Gallup. Lately, said Jennifer Stevens, executive editor at International Living magazine, we're seeing this energy and interest in actually doing it, not just kicking the tires, not just dreaming about it, but doing it. But how? Programs such as the Golden Visa, which allow people to obtain residency or even a path to citizenship in a foreign country by making investments in things like real estate, cultural institutions, and environmental projects, have been popular for more than a decade. But the playing field is changing. Mostly conceived after the global financial crisis of 2008 to boost economic development and avert bankruptcy, these programs have also spurred rapid gentrification in host countries, not to mention tax evasion and money laundering, leading some governments to scale them back or cancel them. Still, numerous options exist, and they come at varying costs for various lifestyles. Ted Bauman, International Living's chief of global diversification, said 30 to 35 countries have some form of the Golden Visa. He said another 12 offer citizenship by investment, CBI, which leads visa holders directly to citizenship with full benefits, including a passport and wider visa access to other countries without in-place residency requirements. While some residency by investment programs are structured to attract high net worth investors, Singapore, New Zealand, Austria, and Monaco, for example, there's usually something that will fit any budget, said Patricia Casabury, chief executive and founder of Global Citizen Solutions, a Lisbon-based consultancy specializing in Iberian residency programs. Here's a look at 5 countries that offer residency programs with particularly attractive features, including low cost of entry, investment variety, and pathways to citizenship. Costa Rica. Long known for high quality of life and friendly tax environment, the Central American nation is particularly compelling for retirees thanks to its low cost of entry and flexible options for temporary residency. The path to permanent residency opens other benefits to people age 65 and older, including national health care. The basic CBI program, called the Inversionista, grants residency with a one-time $150,000 investment in either real estate or another qualifying financial asset, such as shares of a Costa Rican corporation or the Costa Rican stock market. You can also contribute $100,000 to a government-approved forestry or environmental project. The Pensionado visa is for retirees who demonstrate a monthly pension retirement income of at least $1,000. It's valid for 2 years, allows dependents and grants access to the public health care system with low application fee, $250 to $500. For rentista status, a person of independent means, foreigners must make a $60,000 deposit in an approved bank and a monthly $2,500 transfer into a Costa Rican account for 2 years, after which time a $60,000 deposit is required to renew. Greece. Greece was one of several countries that tightened their visa programs in recent years. Today, its Golden Visa offers several tiers of investment, including a minimum of 250,000 euros in real estate, giving it one of the lowest cost entry points in the European Union. The Golden Visa includes visa-free access to the Schengen open border area. Minimum capital investments via the Golden Visa range from 250,000 euros for historic properties needing restoration or conversion, up to 800,000 euros in high-value areas, such as major cities and popular islands. You can also obtain the visa with 500,000 euros in either government bonds, a deposit at a Greek credit institution or real estate investment company, or an investment in an Elevate Greece startup company. Two other options include the Financially Independent Person visa for retirees or digital nomads who must show monthly income of at least 3,500 euros from outside sources, transferred into a Greek bank account. Panama. Panama is consistently lauded for its quality of life, robust service industry, ease of visa process, and healthcare. There's a Johns Hopkins affiliated hospital in Panama City, and long-standing program for retirees. Panama is very stable, and they stick by their programs, unlike what we've seen in a lot of other places, said Ms. Stevens from International Living. The qualified investor visa requires a minimum real estate investment of $300,000, $500,000 in Panama Stock Exchange, or a fixed-term deposit of $750,000 in the banking sector. Panama also has a Friendly Nations visa available to residents from more than 50 countries that have cordial economic and political relationships with Panama, and can be obtained with a $200,000 investment in real estate or a fixed-term deposit, or through employment by a Panamanian company. There are also two levels of investment in the forest teak reforestation sector, $100,000 for temporary residents for 2 years and $350,000 for immediate permanent residents. If you maintain the investment for 5 years, you can be eligible to apply for citizenship. Portugal. Portugal is popular with expats for its weather, culinary and cultural assets, and English proficiency. It also has an affordable and reliable mix of healthcare options in the private and public systems. The country issued its first golden visa in 2012 with a €250,000 real estate investment, but in 2023 it announced it would modify the program, and complaints that foreign investors were inflaming the country's housing crisis. It has since increased the cost of entry and directed investments away from real estate and toward investment funds and donations to cultural or research projects. São Tomé and Príncipe. Started in August 2025, the CBI program offered by this African island nation is attracting attention for its accessibility and speed, low cost of entry to an unspoiled ecosystem, and affordable options for families. The passport offers visa-free access to more than 60 countries, particularly in the Global South. Mo Benes, Senior Vice President at Arton Capital, which assists clients with second residency and citizenship in 20 regional programs, said the microstate is becoming attractive for Americans thanks to its lower cost and straightforward path to citizenship. For investors looking at where the world is heading over the next 20 years, it is a peaceful, strategically located island nation that offers mobility diversification beyond the usual Caribbean options, he said. And keep an eye on. Ms. Stevens said she's seeing a shift in CBI programs away from Europe and toward Latin America. I would not say that Europe is making itself unattractive for foreign retirees, but I think this is the trend we're beginning to see. She pointed to Paraguay and Argentina, which are recovering from financial and social upheaval and reforming their citizenship programs. In the South Pacific, Vanuatu, an archipelago off Australia, offers a fast-track citizenship program with 45 to 60 days for approval and an investment of $130,000 to $180,000, depending on family size, into a local development fund. Nauru, a tiny island nation of Micronesia, restarted its CBI program last year after a 23-year hiatus, rebranded as the Economic and Climate Resilience Citizenship Program. It requires an investment of $115,000. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the July 12th issue of the New York Times Business section. We read from the New York Times Business section every Thursday at 11 a.m. Your reader has been Kathy. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service is today's USA Today. Following that at 2 o'clock is episode number 11 of We the Women by Nora O'Donnell. Stay with us for these readings and more through the rest of the day.
good old gal.
The following program is intended for